That's right, Paris. At this year's Chicago Auto Show, one of the show-stopping cars was an electric vehicle. Ford is changing the fuel on one of its best-selling trucks and introduced the F-150 Lightning. This truck and other electric vehicles on display have EV advocates eager to accelerate the shift from gas to electric. Joining us with more are Jen Walling, Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council, and Sam Ori, Executive Director of the Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago. Welcome back to Chicago tonight to both of you. Jen, let's start with you, please. What about the Ford F-150 Lightning is so exciting for car buyers?
Well, it is one of the most popular models in America, and I think that the hype over it, the amount of people that are excited about it is really exciting. Transportation emissions are now 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions, and solutions like these, different models that are put together by different manufacturers, are critical to reach that solution of cutting carbon emissions in our transportation sector.
Now, electric vehicles have dramatically lower carbon dioxide equivalent emission than gasoline cars, with around 2,000 pounds emitted annually from electric and over 11,000 with gasoline. Now, that's just in Illinois. We're looking at a graphic that shows the comparison really between those annual emissions in Illinois between electric all the way up to gasoline. Jen, can you explain, why you believe electric cars are necessary to get to lower carbon emissions?
Well, we are facing a climate crisis in the whole world. And as I said, transportation emissions are a huge portion of these. There are a number of solutions to cutting carbon emissions in the transportation sector, including walking, biking, public transit, and zero emission vehicles are important. Another item to note is that while electric vehicles are powered off of our electric grid, which often has fossil fuels, our electric grid, because of clean power policies, is getting cleaner and cleaner every single day. And every single day, a diesel or a gas-powered vehicle is on the market, it's getting dirtier. This is a really important solution for clean air for all Illinoisans.
Sam, do you think a gas tax might be more efficient in getting carbon emissions on a larger scale or reducing carbon emissions on a larger scale?
I certainly think it has the possibility to do so. I would echo a lot of what Jen said about the promise of electric vehicles. I think what Ford has done with the F-150, not just because the F-150 is the most popular vehicle model in the US, but also because those are the kinds of vehicles that Americans are buying. 75% of auto sales at this point are SUVs and light trucks. So it's really encouraging to see that kind of progress. I do think that if there's something to be concerned about in light of the urgency of the climate crisis, it's whether or not we can accelerate deployment and purchase of electric vehicles fast enough to really meet the scale of the climate crisis. And there's a lot of promise. There's been some huge improvements and things to be optimistic about over the last decade. Battery prices for electric vehicles have fallen from $1,000 a kilowatt hour when I first started working on this back in 2010 to now well under $200 a kilowatt hour. That's resulted in some
I want to come back to
price decreases.
I want to come back to some of the questions about batteries, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about state policies and how they vary from state to state. Cars may not be accessible depending on what state you live in. Sort of briefly explain what some of those policy differences are, please.
Sure. And so I think one thing that we've seen over the last several years is that state policies have been an important driver of where electric vehicles are. And so, we go to these auto shows and we see lots of different models. Currently, there's 50 different models. It's kind of a headline of electric vehicles being produced by automakers. But the fact is that only, in about half of the country can you really get many of those models. And in half of the country, you're looking at something like a handful, 6 or 7 of those models available in showrooms. And so, state level policies, zero emissions vehicle mandates, some of those kinds of policies, on the one hand, have been really effective in getting the automakers to move inventory into those states. On the other hand, back to your question about a gas tax, those kinds of policies are some of the most expensive ways to reduce carbon emissions. By mandating electric vehicle sales and really pursuing that one option as kind of the only option, you're really increasing costs for reducing carbon dioxide emissions. And so, that's why something like a carbon tax has the potential to be much more cost effective in driving emissions reductions by allowing lots of different options into the marketplace for reducing emissions. It can be increasing efficiency in conventional combustion engine vehicles. It could be, other alternative fuels. It could be getting people at the margin to move from riding in cars to public transportation and other options. Or, who knows what other things the market might come up with if it was incentivized to do so.
And Sam, you just talked a little bit obviously about the cost. Everyone knows that electric cars tend to be a lot more expensive, and there's also the cost of charging. And what we talked a little bit about batteries. Jen, how can these cars be made more affordable and accessible?
Well, I think that today for average Illinoisans, electric vehicles are getting more and more accessible. There is a growing used car market for electric vehicles. There are charging stations and charging infrastructure. There's a lot more work that we're going to need to do in terms of infrastructure and in terms of bringing the cost down. There's items that we want to see, such as a rebate. Governor Pritzker talked very heavily today about a rebate for electric vehicles that I think is important. But above all, I think we're talking about passenger vehicles. We shouldn't discount electrification of our public transit system and buses, which can have an immediate impact by transitioning fleets as well.
Okay, so obviously the journey continues. My thanks to Jen Walling and Sam Ori for joining us.
Thank you for having us.